But the Cubs had a more interesting series this week with your Chicago White Sox. As we mentioned, it was the White Sox World Series. Apparently,
Yeah, I
there's not much else to live for right
th-
now as a
th-
2023 White Sox fan.
yeah, it was the only thing that had any. I think it is the only thing that had any ounce of excitement, even if it was just purely parody for, for for White Sox fans. Just because there's so many storylines more recently between the organizations, even like
Hmm.
like who won the Quintana Cease Eloy trade, and
They
these
both went
guys.
through gut rehab
Yeah,
rebuilds.
right, exactly. The Cubs won a World Series, the Sox failed. Um, and then we've got a lot of these players have all played each other a lot too. So there's not like that. They seem to have a much more friendly demeanor between themselves than what, bubbled up earlier in this
Oh
rivalry with like the Barrett punch to the face
yeah,
to Brzezinski, which was
I'd be
maybe more.
surprised to see that again. I didn't even see fights in the stands this week, which
No,
is
I know. Thank
nice.
God.
So
I
yeah,
mean, yeah.
it seemed like a super cool atmosphere in general. Just like it did. I mean, even for Cubs fans, it feels like the playoffs, and it was epic. Both games were epic for
Yeah.
different reasons. So it really lived up to it. Honestly, right off the top, I think the White Sox outplayed the Cubs for 17 out of the 18 innings. It was just that ninth inning in game two that was the separator. But so I guess you've played your best series. I mean, it's two games, but that seemed like one of the best series the White Sox have played in quite some time. Certainly better than what they did the weekend before and the weekend since. So
Oh God, yeah. Well, we had Sunday, but
yeah,
yeah, no. Honestly, there were more than a few White Sox highlights. One I have to bring forth was Yasmani Grandal
yeah.
threw a runner out at second and made by far his best throw in like the last 2 years.
I actually
Like,
have that written down in my notes. I'm taking notes
uh,
these days, by the way, and printing them out. So
yeah, you got to write shit down while it happens because if you don't, it just
we're
goes.
we're drunk and old, and I just can't remember shit. So CRS disease.
Yeah, I mean,
It was.
yeah,
I wrote down Yaz had the throw of his life to second base to throw out Nico Horner, who's. I just thought the Cubs were going to run on him constantly in that series, and I think that throw kind of shut down the running game because it was just a perfect time throw, perfect on the bag. Like he didn't have to move the tag at all; it was just right there waiting for him.
right. Yeah, it was incredible. It was, and it's like, did the maybe a pitcher finally gave a White Sox catcher a chance too, because
Yeah,
you can say everything you want about the White Sox catching, but half the time, if you watch when our catchers are throwing, it's because the runner's already 3/4 of the way to second base.
yeah.
So you don't oh, your catching sucks, you're terrible defensively. Well, if you want to rate pass balls and shit like that, okay, fine. But if you want to talk about runners stealing bases on us, the Cubs in at the rate the Cubs at the rate set that record of stolen bases in,
Oh,
in a
that's
game
right. Yeah,
for them. It was historic. That wasn't on our catchers. That was 100% on our pitchers.
yeah.
I mean, not only can't Michael Kopech, pitch well, meaning like throw strikes that aren't hanging sliders, so they get destroyed out of the park. But he can't hold anyone on either.
Mm.
And I realize pitchers are at a bit of a disadvantage these days with the new rules.
Figure it out. I mean,
But you figure it out. Guys have figured it out. You change when you throw to the plate.
yeah, change your timing. Just keep the runner guessing. There's
Yeah.
plenty of. I mean, it's not easy, but there's ways to mitigate it, and you
Yeah.
either choose not
People
to
have.
or
Yeah. Yeah, and is that back to the coaching? I don't know, but
uh,
now we're breaking already into a White Sox segment. Let's get back to
well,
the series. I will say this series for me, even though because we won one game, I guess maybe that's why it was more entertaining. But overall, this White Sox, like this is a fun series to watch, no matter
yeah,
who you were. the first game, even though the Cubs came up short, was a fun game, 5-3. And then I knew it. Santos, young pitcher, taking the closing role over right now for Liam Hendricks and maybe the future closer for the White Sox. Doesn't work back to back a lot.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that because he was solid in game one. So
oh my God, he just went out there and he got 4 outs that game.
Yeah.
He just fucking came in and made the Cubs hitters look ridiculous and then flipped the switch. The Cubs had the last laugh courtesy of Peter Criss.
We'll get to that.
But I mean, overall, I had a great time watching the series. I didn't catch a lick of the Colorado series. My brother's getting married this weekend.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, this is the first time I was actually like interested in a White Sox game in quite some time, outside of the one I'll be going to this Saturday. But
oh, nice.
But yeah, so I don't know. I had a blast. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the series?
I want to kind of just go over game one highlights and then game two highlights. I've got a few bullet points here, but
all right, cool.
I feel like the Sox kind of nickel and dime Kyle Hendricks early in that game. There was like, I think in the entire game, there were only 2 hard hit balls by the Sox. There's just infield singles just kind of piled up, and it's kind of not representative of how well Kyle Hendricks actually pitched. So that was interesting.
Real quick, I'm glad you brought that up. That in that first inning or that second inning, somehow Yasmani Grandal, and this is 100% not Kyle Hendricks. This is the Cubs defense, made it from first to third on 2 infield hits. How he was not thrown out, how he was not the object of getting the lead runner with as slow as he is, was just the Cubs players were not thinking properly. And the White Sox ended up in a good position because of it. That was the top of the second. He scored on a line drive to left by Elvis. So,
you're taking good notes over there too.
No, I got it pulled up.
Other notes from game one is David Ross getting ejected kind of between innings, and it was confusing. Like, what the hell just happened? Why was he being ejected? I saw on the White Sox broadcast, at least, they were speculating it was he was questioning a check swing call that went against Seiya Suzuki, and they tossed him out like between innings for it. But that wasn't what it was. It was actually a balk issue that Mike Napoli first pointed out, and then Rossi went nuts apparently halfway through during the intermission between innings. But nobody saw it. I think balks are so confusing, and they might even be more confounding with the new pitching rules. There's so many things. I've never recognized a balk, and I feel like even if somebody recognizes it and they show you what happened, I feel like there's still gray area in every balk call. Some are obvious when you don't come set. I mean, if you don't come set, whatever. But if you're holding your hands like a little bit too high, sometimes it's a balk, sometimes it's not. So I think it's kind of absurd for Rossi to get ejected over a potentially missed balk call. But I guess it speaks to the intensity of that series. Like, the Cubs had to win those games. They only got one done. So I don't know if you had heard much about that, but
yeah, I actually thought at first, and I thought I was actually more relieved for Rossi that he got ejected because of that, versus I thought he went out to argue because he was like, you saw him like drawing a line, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And I thought he was arguing the check swing or like something that was called a ball versus a strike. And I was saying to Robin, I mean, he's arguing balls and strikes. It's a dumb argument because it's going bad both sides. That ump was horrendous behind the plate. So I'm like, if he got ejected for that, it's just a bad ejection, because
the only thing I can think of, you mentioned the line, he was drawing a line. I think one aspect of a balk call is there's like the imaginary 45-degree angle between
Right.
person home that if the pitcher swings his leg over that towards home plate, he has to go to home plate. So maybe
Yeah.
that's what it was. But
Hey, that's what Hendricks said it was, and I'll take his word for
okay,
it.
I hadn't heard
Yeah,
that, but yeah,
yeah. Hendricks said Hendricks shed light on it that
okay.
the they had missed a obvious balk, and he was upset about it. I think he was probably just frustrated overall, and that was the thing. He knew he was automatically going to get tossed if we went out to argue balls and strikes, so he chose this, and
Well,
then
the way I think it played out is he was yelling from the dugout, and the second base ump just ejected him, and then he ran out, and that's when everyone saw what was going on. So
mm,
I don't know, but
yeah, whatever. It
just
seemed like
speaks.
it does seem though, like to your point overall, it seems like a stupid thing to get tossed over.
Yeah, I think it just speaks to the intensity of that series and how much was on the line. So speaking of a lot on the line, I got a expletive laden text from you partway through that game where you were blaming Cody Bellinger for ruining a parlay that you had going.
Oh God, yeah, that fucking piece of shit.
I forget what all the
All he,
pieces
all,
to that.
all he had to do was he was the
Del-
last piece I needed to get 2 total bases. So if it was
okay.
2 singles, it was fine. Uh, it would have been a nice little payout. I lost a whole $5 on it, so I was very upset.
What were the parts
But
of the parlay? You had Bellinger multiple
uh,
bases, but
I
I
had
forget.
Robert for multiple bases.
Okay.
I had Mancata for multiple
Oh, you all
bases.
right over there?
Yeah, that was Robin
I
actually.
think you're covering
Uh,
up your mic too.
oh, sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Uh, yeah, I had Robert for multiple bases, 2 bases, and then I had Eloy for a hit because that's always obvious. So,
Yeah, Bellinger had a hard hit ball, but Colas should have just dropped it for you, and the Cubs could have tied the game at that point. I
well,
forget
it
what
may have
inning
been
it was.
caught. May have been an error then.
I think you should have. I think you should have called Colas out, not Bellinger, for ruining
Yeah,
your parlay.
0 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout. Fuck you, Cody Bellinger.
F- $5, so you would have won what?
Like almost
Sorry, I
like
should have.
over 2. I think it was like over 200.
Oh wow,
So, yeah,
I should have prepared you for that. But
yeah. I can't remember.
yeah, CRS
That
says
was a
these.
week ago. So,
Well, of course, the play of the game, and maybe the play of this decade in crosstown history. Of course, the Luis Robert majestic home run that came
that was
with a majestic bat flip, kind of posed for a bit, and then eventually shushed the annoying the stereotypical Cubs fans behind the home plate, flipping him
mhm.
off. Who know? I think they were mercilessly heckling him for the
Yeah,
previous couple
I
of
think it's
pitches. Go
yeah, I
ahead.
think that's who he turned to stare at.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think what I heard is they were giving him shit for swinging at a slider to get it to 0-2, like it was way out of the zone. So they're just saying, "You don't know what you're doing," or whatever. He
Yeah.
shut him up immediately. But that reminded me immediately of your story where you were heckling Pudge Rodriguez mercilessly at Sox Park back in the day, where he then hit a home run. And he didn't shush you, did he? Did he? What was it? He pointed at you at
He
least.
pointed at me. He went like, for those of you not able to see this, he directly pointed at me. I was in the scout seats where Smitty and I, not
That's
too
right.
far from where Smitty and I were sitting, a little more directly behind home plate. And he just pointed at me and then walked back to the dugout. And everyone in the section was dying laughing.
Because
I
you were
mean,
just yelling roids at him
yeah, I
like
kept
over and
yelling
over again.
steroids, yeah, roids, yeah. He just like it was obviously annoyed him because he destroyed that ball.
It's a
Like
little bit annoying.
it was a great. You think so? Yeah, roids. Come on, roids.
You're never annoying though, so I don't
No,
know
I
where he
know,
gets that
right?
from.
It's so weird. So
Well, yeah, Robert's going to come back up in our badass of the week conversation because that was quite the moment that just shut down the entire ballpark, and it's very memorable until game 2 where there was an equally memorable moment, maybe more memorable. I don't know. We can debate that, but unless you had other thoughts about your victory in game 1.
no, I did not.
Well, like I said, I really feel like overall, if you add up all the innings, the White Sox were the better team. They won they were the better team for 17 out of those 18 innings. It was just that ninth inning in game 2, it just changed everything. But um, just some notable moments. You and I had a ridiculous Twitter debate about relief pitchers and playing armchair manager and playing the results. So I tried to put you in a corner by like saying what move would have been better to do rather than putting in Merriweather, who gave up the home run to Luis Robert. He's been their middle inning shutdown guy, and I know you pulled up the stats and they're not trending in the right direction, but he's been in that role for quite a while and has had enough success. I was just sort of defending that. It was just that moment that he the worst case scenario came up where he'd given up 2 home runs all season to a right-handed batter. He would had nobody on base, 2 outs, and then gives it up to Robert. So, but I pinned you in a corner to tell me who you would put in instead, and you chose Jose Cuas, the new acquisition from Kansas City.
Yeah, because as a Kansas City Royal, he just owned the White Sox.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
the
very next evening,
I was dying laughing, by the way.
Well, the irony of ironies is I've forced you to come up with that, and first time he immediately comes out just hours after and can't get an out. In fact, loads the bases and to bring in Michael Fulmer. And Fulmer was probably the right answer for game 1 if we had dug deeper into it, because he's basically their 8th inning guy that's just started out the season pretty shaky and has been lights out since. But he was fucking lights out in game 2. Inherited, bases loaded, nobody out, strikes out the side on 11 pitches. Almost an immaculate inning if it was 9 pitches to get 3 strikeouts. That would have the only way it could have been better. But of course, the stakes aren't nearly as high, but it reminded me of El Duque in 2005 in Boston. I mean, that was a bases loaded, nobody out.
Yeah,
he didn't get 3 strikeouts, did he? I think he got a pop
no,
up.
he got a pop out from Veritek.
Of course, that's in the playoffs, so there's a little bit,
yeah,
a little bit more on the line there. But
he same thing though. He went through the heart of the order basically. It looked like dire straits for the White Sox and walked out of the inning.
It was Robert, Moncada, and Vaughn, which is like it's just set up so perfectly for you to take that game or to just blow it wide open.
And I believe it was Ramirez, Ortiz, and Veritek in.
That sounds right. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was crazy. But I will make my argument that Cuas gave up less runs than Merriweather. So who's right in this argument?
That's true. Yeah, we could rehash that. We'll leave that. That's what's great. That's what's great for Twitter. Terrible, ridiculous arguments that go nowhere because neither of us will ever back down. That led to another interesting moment in White Sox Cubs history as Nick Madrigal hits a home run from out of nowhere, second home run of the year. Of course, he somehow pulls that out of his ass against his former White Sox. So I thought that was a momentous occasion.
A infamous basket job, yes.
Yeah, you hate the basket.
Well, it would have been a double, but
works both ways. So
that is fair. That's a fair statement.
But of course, the most magical moment of Game 2, and maybe in the last decade of Cubs White Sox history, is the Christopher Morel walk-off. It's the first walk-off home run in Cubs Sox series history that was a game, or not just a game winner. It was come from behind walk-off, which was there's been other walk-off homers, but it was a tie game at the time apparently. So. Just he had been struggling actually. I think he was like 3 for 38 coming into that at bat. So it wasn't like a given, but you knew he had the power to do it. But earlier in the evening, you had pointed out his kind of bizarre eye black style. It looks like cat whiskers. I think I brought it up early in the season, but you posted a meme of former Kiss drummer, or maybe still Kiss drummer. Is Kiss still around? Former Kiss drummer Peter Criss, who famously had the kabuki makeup with the cat whisker stripes. It actually does look a lot like it. So that, of course, leads to the old baseball adage: you can't let Peter Chris Morel beat you. They did it. I think that's all I've got for game 2. I'm sure you didn't have the same same glorious feelings
uh,
that Cubs fans did, but
you know what? I let out a what the fuck? Because
yeah.
when Bellinger let off with the double, my first thought was, and this could be a Grafali, like
Mm,
the you should have had if these were if this if as he described it as the worst loss of the season. I'm like,
did.
there's so many. I mean, really?
Yeah, that's saying something if that was the worst.
What about the ones within your division? But then again, it goes back to how much this series is scrutinized in the city of Chicago that perhaps
Yeah.
puts extra pressures on the manager. Um, but like how you just didn't have someone ready to go because he's a young pitcher, and if you thought the stakes were that high in the game,
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
I didn't think about the back-to-back nights for the young reliever because he's been so good, but if they've been, able to keep him out of those situations,
Yeah.
there should be a book on that at least, or at least some common sense maybe
Yeah,
just
I
to
mean, this goes back to the last 2 years, and that was under La Russa and the staff and this staff now too. It's like sometimes you wonder, like, are you looking at the splits? Are you looking at the numbers? Why do fans know why does it
Yeah.
look like fans know more than you do
Well,
about your own team?
that's kinda my point about our stupid Twitter argument is there's a lot
Yeah.
more going on that we're not even aware of.
Oh yeah, I
So,
mean they probably had I mean, I know Rossi didn't leave the dugout and be like, "Have at it." I mean,
yeah.
he was like, just stick to the plan we have in place on who we're using tonight. So, I mean, it was fun. We don't argue that much anymore, like on shit like that. So I always enjoy just the drag out.
Yeah.
It was,
I think it went over, like, 24 hours, like, it
it
didn't
went it
stop
went
the
far
night.
too long,
Yeah,
really, but
it did go way too far. So the Cubs finally take it's not the BP Cup anymore, is it? What is it now? The
I think it's 2
Wintrust
years.
Cup?
It's the Crosstown Club. Yeah, the Wintrust
Maybe it's
Crosstown
not even
Cup.
sponsored
But I
anymore
think it's
'cause
like it's Wintrust, but I think it's the last 2 years, right?
no, I think that's what I was gonna say. I think you guys have held on to it for several
Oh.
years because they keep splitting the overall series.
Oh, and whoever won it last just gets to keep
It
it.
just kept going back to the White Sox because you won it, like, 3 years ago, and then the last 2 years, it just keeps, like we were bringing up, the home team loses every series somehow. It looked like it
Yeah,
was gonna happen again until Chris Morel took care of shit, so
that was the Sox 6th win in a row at Wrigley on the first night, which is
oh, wow.
crazy. That's
Yeah,
just crazy.
that is
Crazy
crazy.
talk. We should switch fields.
Probably not, but
No, I don't want to either, but
actually, bringing up fields, Wrigley Field, there's all the classic Ozzy meme from 15 years ago where it says everybody hates going to that stadium.
oh
It's just a
yeah.
shithole, the rats and everything. But of course, that was before the renovation. So, but I liked how everyone was posting that. Like Wrigley's just a shithole now. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think you've been there in a while. So I
Yeah,
think
no, it's pretty nice these days. Pretty nice. I would venture I would even say back when I wasn't in the visitors dugout. I'd seen pictures. I totally agree with Ozzy's statements based on the pictures back then.
well, think
I've
about the
seen the
visitors clubhouse back then.
That's
Like
what I'm saying.
how
Yeah, that's
shitty
right.
it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I meant, the clubhouse. Yeah.
Yeah. So you
So
can't blame him for having a
you can't
strong
blame
opinion.
yeah, exactly. But now it doesn't hold any water any longer, but
Well,
whatever.
you and I are going to be enjoying the friendly confines within 3 days, as you and I are going to see Guns N' Roses.
You know where the fuck
At
you are, Ren?
it's going to be 105 degrees, so
It's
hopefully,
gonna be the jungle.
yeah, start hydrating right now.
Word Hole Media.